Hello, everyone. So I did my final project on the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. And so when I initially proposed it, I was going to focus on the refugee crisis in Afghanistan. But as I started doing research, I realized that this is a much larger issue than simply just refugees. Because while there are refugees, there's still a lot of people who are just displaced in Afghanistan, and the people who are still there are facing really awful conditions. So I dove into the history of Afghanistan a little bit more because there's more of a history than the United States invasion in 2001. So, Russia invaded in 1979, and they were there for a decade, and it was just guerrilla warfare. And there's been internal conflict, like the Taliban emerged in 96, and then a few years later, after September 11th, the United States, we started our war in 2001, and then that lasted until 2021. And as we all know, the Taliban has since taken over again. Except now they're stronger, better armed, and they control more territory than they did 20 years ago. So after the Taliban left, there was that awful, chaotic evacuation process that we all remember seeing on the news. And I guess I was surprised at doing some research on like the UN and all of the countries that were called upon to take refugees, and so many who wouldn't, or the minimal amounts that they were willing to accept, like 5,000 families, which really isn't a lot in the, I think, country of 38 million. And I think the United States just said that we could help with a certain monetary percentage. So beyond the refugees, there's still people that are in Afghanistan, and so they have a collapsing economy right now. The foreign aid has been depleted, and their foreign reserves have been frozen. They have a shrinking workforce, which is due to multiple reasons, like their economy is collapsing. And then crop production and livestock production are down, which that also affects the food scarcity that's going on in Afghanistan. I think 23 million people are facing acute hunger, and more than 3 million children are malnourished. Crop production has been reduced by 28%, and then we're expecting livestock production to be reduced as well. So this population is just very vulnerable right now, and facing pretty awful conditions. There's a drought, and I don't have this on my website or anything, but now I'm getting a bunch of ads for Afghanistan refugees. And now it's winter, and now it's freezing, and that's just another level to add to everything that they're already experiencing. So these are desperate people, and that's being taken advantage of too. There's scammers who are promising escape to another country, but instead are just stealing money. Or there was a female activist, I'm probably saying this wrong, Firuzan Safi, and she was lured out of her house under the false promise that somebody would help her leave Afghanistan, and she ended up being murdered. So it's just, these are really sad conditions. And I guess just being over here on the other side of the globe, you're kind of left wondering what you can do to help. And so I learned there's quite a few organizations out there that are helping out Afghanistan, and a lot of them are like offering monetary support, clothes, food, and water to the Afghan people. There's only a few that are assisting with like evacuating the country. There's some that assist with refugees that have been, they're in new countries now. They have to learn new cultures, and just how to sort of assimilate, get a job, and things like that. I did learn that the UNHCR, they've helped 5.2 million refugees return to Afghanistan once they decide that their return is safe, which I think is important to note, because like one of the awful things that American people say to immigrants or refugees is go back to your country, and I think maybe we need to realize that some of them do want to go back home. And then there's a bunch of organizations that are pretty much lobbyists. They have money to try and change policy and legislature and things like that, which is important, because like in the grand scheme of things, that's really how we're going to make these changes possible. But I guess personally, as somebody on the other side of the globe, I would rather donate my money or food or clothes to somebody who needs it, and I feel like I would just have a bigger impact on the individual instead of the policies. So I feel like this is kind of a downer to end the course on, but this was really enlightening for me. Don't judge my website too harsh. I don't think I'm maybe the most savvy at making a website, but I gave it my best shot. I think most importantly, I learned a lot doing this research, and I'm excited to learn from everybody else's projects, and I hope to maybe see some of you in future classes. All right. Thanks, guys.